Hi there, welcome to video number 3. It's part 3 of reprogramming the Stream Deck for the G1000 NXi after the September 10 update. So this one's looking at the main flight display, which is one of the areas that's changed quite a bit actually for the G1000 unit. The soft buttons were hardly used before, but they have actually got a menu system going now. So this will give you a quick overview of what the buttons actually do now. So in the default map view, we've got buttons, soft buttons here, soft keys along the bottom, that will take us into submenus. So again, I had this built with just one folder because I hardly ever used it, but we're going to have to use profiles here to make this work in the same way we did in the previous video for the primary flight display. So the Mfd now has a button here for engine management, and so clicking on engine takes us to this submenu here, so you can see the menus are all changed. Back will obviously take us back exactly where we were. So engine, and then it's got two submenus here, and again they bring up different options. So we've got the ability to lean, which is where we can get exhaust gas temperature information, and we can look at independent cylinders, pistons and cylinders on the engine, so we can cycle through that here and select one. So there's no submenus on this one, and interesting enough, these will take us back to engine, so back where we started. So these will be swapping profiles. If you're in engine and you press engine, it does nothing, but if you're in the lean, engine will take you back. I won't go too deeply into the cylinder assist of how it works. Again, there's a video that I've linked to in the previous one. I'll link again here, which explains in more depth how this actually works and what the assist does. But just to show you that it's not going to open up any well, it does open up another menu because it kind of blanks that out, but I'm not going to bother with it. I'm going to keep this profile as it is and just know that that button's inactive if I try to press it when I'm in the assist mode. So I need to go back to lean, and that doesn't take us anywhere, that doesn't take us out. So the assist actually toggles that, but it's just pressing the button. So I don't think we need to redraw a profile for this one here. But I can go from lean to system, and I can go from system to lean, and I can go from system to engine, and they've all got the back button, and the back button always takes us back to the map. So there's a bit of depth here. Let's go back into the engine again, into system. And even this has one more submenu. Resetting the fuel will allow you to reset this back here. The fuel quantity, but the gallons remaining means that we can make adjustments if we need to how many gallons there are. I'm not sure I'd ever do that, but I just like to program it so that it's as accurate as possible. So the gallons remaining allows us to add 1 gallon, 10, 35, 53. So you can add or subtract gallons from there to make this more accurate if that's what you need to do. So again, the back button will take us back. Lean will take us into the lean. Let's go back into this gallons remaining section, and engine takes us back to the engine. So there's quite a sort of web going on here of profiles that are going to be connected together. But anyway, that's kind of the main ones that will be driven by these soft keys. So there are a few menus and submenus, and it's webbing them together is going to be an interesting task. Where does the back take us? Well, eventually it takes us back to the map option, and I've got to watch out for that because sometimes it seems to be a double click required to go on the map, depending on where you are in the system. So we need to work on that a little bit. The detail section here really is a pop-up. So we don't need to do any submenus here, but the map option again takes us into an area where we can turn on different terrains. Again, I'm not going to go into this. It's referenced better in a video that somebody else made, which I will put into the description, the link to it. But as far as our purposes are concerned, it doesn't lead us into any submenus. So we don't have to create anything else other than a map option in here. Nothing. Next read on and off. These are not available to us. Legend brings up a pop-up and back takes us back out. So there's one layer here. But this is where it becomes interesting. If I start to use, and let's bring this camera up here. If I use this MFD button here, which I'm actually going to do on my X-Touch Mini, I'm going to use the outer button here. That of course brings us into sub-pages like the map, waypoint information, and these buttons here, keep an eye on them. Let's go backwards through that. Go back to map, no change. Waypoint information, no change. But as soon as you get to the auxiliary menu, that's a different menu, and there's nothing that we can do that we can work out that we've changed to this here. So if you wanted these buttons here, I'm not sure they're actually active at the moment. I haven't explored this too much, but I'm going to program them in anyway. But as soon as you get there, we need to be able to change manually on my Stream Deck to that profile. So I'm going to have to put a button that will take us to the auxiliary profile. The flight plan, if we go across to flight plan, that also changes the menu system down here. Again, if we explore that, there's a map option button here, which takes us to pretty much the same menu, but I think it's actually identical. But we are going to have to create a separate profile, identical profile, because the back button is going to take us back to here. So on previously, if we get out of this, let's go back to map. If I went to the map option here, when I press back, I want to get back to this menu here. Whereas if I'm in my flight plan mode, if I'm in flight plan and I go for map options, when I press the back, I want to end up back in the flight plan. So we are going to have to create another map option. It'd be a clone, and then the map button will be changed. But that's what we need to watch out for there. So that was when we get to the flight plan. And nearest, again, has its own submenu. Clicking on map, it's the same thing again, but of course our back button, we wanted to take it back to the nearest menu. So to trigger these, the menus here, the flight plan and nearest options, no way of triggering those really if we wanted to get that to come up so that it's identical on our Stream Deck, other than having a button that will manually take us to flight plan and nearest. And last but not least, if we go back to the map, there's a sub page here for the traffic. If I go down to traffic, and this has its own sub menu here, so again we'll need to have a button on there that takes us into the traffic option. These are on-offs, so nothing for us to do on that. But if we go into motion, that's got a sub menu as well, so that's another profile we will need to build. Haven't explored the use of this too much. Oh, and duration has its own sub menu. So there's sub menus with back buttons that will drive us back up through the menu system. So that's something that we need to watch out for. Oh, and the altitude mode. Oh, that's interesting. So that's got its own little. So these are sub menus that we need to build, and we can still get into the engine management system from here. So this is getting a complex little system that again we need if we're getting into the engine management from here, we need to be able to get back to here. So that's another clone we need to build at some point. It's not difficult to do once we've made it, so we just clone it, and it's only the back button at the top level that needs to be changed. But there we are. So let's have a go. Let's go back to our main normal navigation map, and that's, we don't need to do anything about that because that is the normal mode, so that's okay. Just checking along here, so if we just check for any so that's in for airport information, intersection information, NDB, VOR. So the buttons haven't changed at all for those sub menus. Auxiliary, don't think that's going to change at all. Flight plan, doesn't matter where we are in there. And nearest, I think there's only one. So there's no other sub menus other than the traffic one coming up on the map. The last bit that's of interest, let's just switch back to the map view, ordinary map view. That these buttons here, when we press direct to, that causes all the options to disappear. I don't think I'm worried about that. I don't think I'll build a profile for that one particularly. That they'll just, the options will disappear. Maybe I will. I'll think about that as we go along. Menu. And that's if I go into map settings, there's nothing in the soft keys there of any interest to us. And let's do the menu again. So we'll click on menu and we'll go to declutter and pressing enter on that. It's pretty much the same thing we had before of what level of detail to have. So again, we'll think about how we're going to deal with that in a bit. Let's clear that. Back to our normal map view. Will that let us go back? Or is it's just the detail button? So I think we are in our normal profile there for that. That's okay. And that was menu. Flight plan. Again, brings us up to that flight plan profile that we had before. So we can probably program that as a dual action on here. And let's have a look at procedure. So a turn flight plan of procedure just blanks it. So we could create a blank profile that we could flash up temporarily. But I think it's going to be a bit tricky though, because it's a kind of conditional thing here. I'm not sure I'm that bothered to do that. Clearing into node. So a quick analysis of that. Let's go back to PowerPoint and have a look at what I've discovered so far. And there's probably some things here that need to be added as we go along and test it and add some extras in. But here's the sort of bare minimum I've discovered. Starting in the main MFD, main flight display. Pressing the engine button takes us into the engine system. So this is what I'm going to call this one here. I'm going to call it engine. Pressing on lean takes us to here. And ways back. Engine goes back that way, and back goes back to the main one. System takes us down to the system here. But so does that take us to the system. Pressing the engine here takes us back into the engine system. Pressing lean here takes us back into lean. So that's relatively easy to sort out. And then the back take us all the way to the back. There's a bit of work here to do on the assist and the gallons remaining. Assist should be okay, but gallons remaining takes us into here, which is good. Again, its own way back to the engine, back to the lean, and the back button for this one doesn't take us back up here. It takes us back to here. So a little bit inconsistent there how that back button's going to work for us. Over on this side here, we've got the main map options. And again, there's nothing much there for us to do other than to make sure that one goes back into the main. So what's next for us? Well, we've got these modes that we need to be able to manually pull up. The flight plan mode, the nearest mode, and they've all got their own cloned, absolutely identical map options, but they need to go back to the right one, the one that called it before. So we'll see how that works. See if we can work a system for that. And when we're in the traffic section, so we've got the motion one, which takes us down here. There's the duration, and the back buttons will walk ourselves back up, and the altitude mode takes us into here and back again. No submenus below that. And there is this aux mode that, as far as I can see, doesn't have any submenus on it yet, but they may develop that later. So what have we got left? Well, I've tried to list everything that I found. I'm still discovering submenus, but from the main map. We've got to be able to get in. We've got the main option, which will be there when we're in the map, and we need to get one called engine, one called lean, one called system. The gallons remaining, but I've just called gal, and the map options, and that's version 1 of it. That's going to because of the back button taking us back where we need to go. From the traffic menu, we've got to have a profile called motion, profile called duration, and the altitude options. We've got one called auxiliary, and the flight plan. Again, it's going to go to a second version of the map to take us back, and the nearest has got an option to the map. I might need to do something here with the lean about the assist version, and we'll see how we get with that. So that's the where we are. So I have build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, let's count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, perhaps 16, and if I have to do one for the lean, 17 different profiles, which are pretty much clones of each other. They're quite easy to create, but it's quite a lot of profiles to make a not very complex system work. What I'm wondering here with the map 2 and map 3 is whether I can have it switching to previous profile so that it will go back to the one that called it before, and so maybe I only have to create one of these map profiles, and the action of going back to previous, switching back to previous, will remember where it came from. So I'm kind of hanging my hopes on that. Okay, so we need to look at the Stream Deck, and what I'm going to do is create what I did before. If I bring up my profiles that I created for the PFD, I created an NXi Blank, and then copied that, cloned that all the way down, and then went in and edited each one. So I'm going to try and do the same for the MFD. So I need to create an MFD Blank. But what I was wondering was, if we look at the MFD Blank, if there's any shortcuts I can take to creating this to save me doing this all again. So I wondered if I could clone this and edit this. So what I need to do is to use my X's and O's to look at how the soft keys are allocated in the main flight display. So we'll do what we did before. I'm going to put an event on here just to experiment with this. So it's a Lorby X's and O's event. And what I'm going to look for is a filter for the 1000 MFD in the HTML variables, and I have got soft keys, and the only difference as far as I can see in the text is that it says MFD soft keys 1. So I think I should be able to clone this to be the Mfd Blank, and then go in and just edit literally the P for the PFD to the MFD, and that should work. I won't need those buttons here, so I can get rid of those, but I will have to put onto each page those keys that I needed. If I go back to, let's get rid of that and do some tidying up. These ones here that I need to create so I can get into the traffic menu and the aux. I've got 4 buttons there that I need to create profile switches for. So I'm going to create the blank one now, and we'll do that sort of live before your very eyes, and let's see if this works. So if I bring up this one here, the preferences, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this one here by duplicating it, renaming it. This is my blank that I'm going to make, and this is my MFD, and what I'm going to do is move this down my MFD blank. I wish that auto scrolled, but it doesn't seem to do that. But I want to bring this down to underneath the PFD. So we'll have these all together as we work on them. So I'm going to switch now to that profile. This is my MFD blank, and let's delete that one. And I want to go in and edit these. So all I'm going to do is change the P to an M and submit. I'm going to do the same for all of these. So again, I'll pause and then come back and show you what I've built later on. So that'll be the MFD. Don't forget the submit on the bottom of that. And let's do 3, just so you can see the process. So that saves me a fair bit of building time. As I said, don't really want these buttons here, so we'll just delete those. And I'm going to have a couple up here, which will be the profile switches for later on. So that will be for my traffic, auxiliary, and then I'll have one for my flight plan. So let's just copy this across, and I'll probably program those in onto the blank one as well once I've created all the clones, and even before I edit them, just make them, and then we can link up to them. But this is the thing I was looking at, the action here. I can go to the next profile, but I can't go to previous profile. That's a bit of a shame. That'd be quite a nice feature to have, so you can remember where it came from. So it doesn't look like my my previous profile trick's going to work. I'm going to have to create a number of map profiles. Okay, so I will pause the recording and come back and show you when I've got this little bit on the blank sorted out, and then cloned the blanks with the right names. Okay, welcome back. So in your absence, I spent some time with Stream Deck and programmed up quite a large number of different profiles needed to make this work. I do hope this is going to make some sense, and I'll put up the Stream Deck profile there. I've had to create so far that many profiles for the MFD all the way down to there, and that's probably not everyone, but I've got the main one's done. It turns out to be much more complex than you think, but I'm just going to run through and show you how it works. So on this side here I'm going to have my Stream Deck, and it's the software version, so I will tell you which button I'm pressing as I go along, and these are the soft keys that I've programmed in. I need a way to get back out of this, and again, because we're going to use this for a number of different aircraft, the best way out of it is to return to the hangar and then choose the aircraft that I want to get back into the main cockpit for. That seems to be the quickest way of doing it. And this is my entry point to the new MFD. I've got an old one there which was just a folder and it didn't have any sub-levels in it. This one has now got switched to the profile, and it goes to the MFD main. So if we press that now, we'll go to the MFD main layout. So that's what you get if you're in the map. And let's just have a look at these buttons here. Again, some of them are inactive, don't actually do anything, but we've left the programming in because you could, in theory, press this button here and it will send that you press off key number 2, and it would be ignored by the system there. So it doesn't matter if you press on here or on the Stream Deck. So those ones are going to be completely ignored. Let's have a look at this one here. So pressing the engine button is a multi-action. So what I did was I went on to, if I was doing it to this button here, I would move that to a multi-action. So it would move this code inside the multi-action. So that's here, that's the normal code for setting it. You pressed the soft key number 1 and added the fact that it should switch the profile to the engine profile. So let's see that in action. That's going to work now. If I press engine, you can see that that's now their engine lean system matches this one here, engine lean and system. Pressing engine doesn't do anything, but I can switch to the lean system. And again, from here, from this one here, let's go back to the engine profile. That's again a multi-action, and it's, as you'd expect, it's going to trigger the soft key number 2 and switch profile to one called lean. So let's get into the lean profile here. So we're in lean here. So that will allow us then to go into selecting the cylinder that we're looking at. So if I press the cycle select on my Stream Deck, you should see this move across. So I'm pressing cycle select now, and you see it's selecting which cylinder it's actually looking at for the temperature. So that works fine. The assist button, again, doesn't take us to a sub menu, it just allows us to bring up the assist version. And that's now going to work with the assistance, and we'll deal with that, have a look at that later, or you can see that in another video that I have referenced. I can't get back to cycle select. I have to turn the assist off by pressing assist again, and that switched the assist off. So I can now select my cycle, my cylinder, and from here I can go in either direction back to the engine. So if I press on engine here, that will trigger that action of switching us back to the engine profile. Or I can go to the system. Again, it's a multi-action, which will take us into switching the profile for system. So let's go back and go from the lean one, go into system here, and we're in the system. So the actions are the same in all of these sort of sub pages here. These are not allocated. That resets the fuel. So if you have a look at here, that says there's 27.9 gallons remaining. If I press the reset, that's reset that as if it's full. And it's really just for the calculations. This one here is actually reading what's really in the tanks. That one there is showing what would the calculation look like if you were full. And I can click on gallons remaining, and I can take 10 gallons away from here for my calculations, or 1 or whatever, so I can adjust that. This clicking on the system button here won't take us anywhere, so that's not got a profile switch, but I should be able to switch back to the lean or the engine profile. The back one here will take us to the system profile, so that should work correctly. So it's just tracing really where this one takes us back to and then replicating it on here. So this back function here, one press on that takes us back here. So again, this matches engine lean system, and it's the reset and gallons remaining. So that did follow that action there. And if I press back here, that should take me back to the main system here. So that's working fine. So I've explained this one takes me back to the hangar. There are some pages I need to access directly. As I said in the previous part of the video, that if I turn the MFD knob here, which I'm going to do actually on my X-Touch Mini, you won't see that. But if I turn that here, that's going into the map, the waypoint, the auxiliary option, and there's no way of detecting that that's happened. So I've got here on my pages the fact that I can swap to the auxiliary page, and that now matches this. And if I come out of that page, if I turn the MFD knob again and go back, say, to the map, I need a way of getting my pages back to being the main map layout. So I've just got pages I can call up at any point, and so I've created a folder which I've then duplicated to every profile. I hope I haven't missed any. I've also got on this main one, I've got the ability just to bring up the the keys with no text on them, but they all function. So if I find myself in a place where I haven't actually got the right thing up, I can get straight back to the main and bring that up, and I can still operate the buttons. I've also got here that I can use the range function here, this joystick here, so I can turn that joystick on off. If I press push, you should see there's a cursor appeared here, and I can drive that cursor around on the screen using the left and right and up and down buttons as if I was rocking the joystick across. It sort of emulates this effect of pushing the joystick across, and it works at the same glacial speed, I'm afraid. Nothing much we can do about that. So let's bring the stream back up so you can see that happening. So I'm pressing this right hand button here, and you'll see that it auto repeats at just about the same rate as the cursor does on the screen. So it's not massively useful, but it's there. And I've got the range tuned in to one of my rotary controllers on the X-Touch Mini, so I can change that. So if you want it, it's there. We've got the cursor sorted out, and I've also got these buttons here replicated here if you really want to have those. So that is the AS1000 MFD Direct to, similar to the way we did the PFD on the previous video, and MFD menu push. So those are all collected. If you haven't seen the previous video, you really ought to go back and have a look at it. So check where I've referenced it to go back and look at the previous video, how you use X's and O's to access those. But basically, you start off as if you're going to allocate a key event, and I use a filter for the 1000, and we type in MFD just to narrow it down. Look in the HTML variables, and this is where you'll find all the soft keys. And if I wanted to put in the the flight plan push, you'll see that in alphabetical order. I got the flightware FPL, the flight plan push. Highlight it, right hand click on it so it's copied to your clipboard, and then you can close this. You don't need that anymore. And I would paste it in there with a Control V, and that's put that in. It has to be told it's an HTML event, because you've got these various options here. Tell it's an HTML event, and then click submit, and then that is where the command will be sent. So that's how that one works. So these are all allocated. The clear button has two functions. It has an ordinary key down event, and we've looked for the MFD clear, and it also has a long press event for the long, which you again pick up from the list in X's and O's. Okay, hope that makes sense, but really I haven't got time in this video to go through all that. You need to go back and see a previous video that I've made. So I've got various pages set up there. The map option. Map option, most of them just switch things on and off or cycle around. So if I press the terrain button, see in the insert, as I've got it typed on my thing, doesn't do anything at the moment. But if I press on terrain, you'll see that it is cycling through the various options there. Airways doesn't do anything at the moment. Next round I can toggle on and off. These next two options are blanked out. Press legend, that comes up, and back takes us back to the main map menu. So that's working absolutely fine. So that's the options there. So those aren't too difficult to set up and work out. On here, yeah, we've got the detail button here. Again, that will cycle us through the level of detail that's available to us on the map. The complication really comes from when we go into this section here. So if we go into the navigation and rotate it down to pick up the traffic map, this has got quite a few sub areas here, but the difficulty is that each one of them also has the engine function here. So if we go into engine here, when I press the back button, if I click here, or in fact the back button on my Stream Deck, I want to end up back on that menu for the traffic. So what I've had to do is to create a clone profile. If I just go back for the moment, so this engine profile here actually takes me not to the ordinary engine profile, but to a duplicate one, which is that should have taken me to the engine for traffic. So let's edit that. Let's have a look where we were. So let's go back here. Engine. I need to change this to my traffic. Here we go. So this one here should take me to the engine traffic profile. It does. It takes me to the engine traffic profile, so that's fine. So we'll just test that out, make sure I end up there. If I press engine, I should be in the engine traffic profile, and this back button here should take me back to the traffic menu. Let's have a look. MDF traffic, it does. So let's go back using that icon there. And I should end up back in the traffic, which I do, so that's fine. So I had to create another engine profile so that if I'm in traffic, when I go over to the engine and return back to there, it gets very, very complicated to work out where you are. So that's why I've put these kind of emergency pages, so that if I get lost in the menu system, I've got a way of sort of restoring the status quo. So those work. These are just toggles on and off for that one, and these just toggles don't take us anywhere. But the motion and the alt mode do take us into other submenus. So we've got a motion submenu, and there's a duration submenu. The back button, again, multi-action, and switches us back to the motion menu. So let's just check that out. So back takes us to motion. You can see absolute, relative and off written here, so we're back where we need to be. And this back button here switches our profile back to traffic, so we'll just check that out, make sure that works. So we'll press back, we're back in traffic, and then we've got the altitude mode button to have a look at. That takes us back to toggles basically, and so our back button again takes us back to traffic. So that's okay, that's working fine. But if I come out of here and go back to my standard map now, let's move ourselves up to the standard navigation map. This profile here has changed here to the standard one, and it hasn't changed here. So this is where I use this option, the pages option here, to go in and make sure that we're back at our main layout. Okay, so that's why I've got that pages there to take us back. Ditto, if we go across here, the auxiliary menu here, we need to better change that, so we can only change that by going into pages and going to auxiliary. Next one across, the flight plan, again that changes the options, and we've got the similar problem with the engine, that if we go into the engine sub menu we need to return back to the flight plan. So if we go to the pages here, pick up the flight plan layout, our engine here, multi-action, and the action for the profile is to switch us to an engine layout, but specifically for the flight plan, so that if we press the back button it takes us back to the flight plan. And we'll just check that out. If I go to engine, they match, but the back button here should take us back to the flight plan layout, which it does. So that's the flight plan layout, and that's the flight plan layout there. So that's that works there. And the same with the map option. When we go into the map option, when we come out of it, we want to come back to the flight plan version. So again, it's needed a new profile created for the map called from the flight plan. So when we press the back button here, that takes us back to the flight plan. If I go across again, let's move to the next one across, so the flight plan, and nearest needs the same kind of thing done to it, that we need to create a page that we can access from anywhere to take us to the nearest layout. So this engine button has two options, and it takes us to a profile for the engine, but will return us to the nearest layout. And ditto with the map one, that will take us to a layout for the map, which will return us to the nearest. So it's all, again, it's all about let's go into that one. Let's do the map one. The back button here is the one that needs to be changed for this particular profile, so that it's a multi-action and it returns us to the nearest submenu. So if we're in the map here and then I press back, I should end up in that nearest option there. So that works. That works absolutely fine. If I work my way back now to the main option, so I'm going to click here on pages and go to the main option here, and I'm going to use this to go back to the map. So we're back to our sort of standard layout. These buttons here, the direct to, if I press on there, there's no change here to the menu, I don't think. There is, oh, that goes away. But if you look at my Stream Deck, I've just left that as the normal layout. There's no point changing, having a blank profile particularly. Although I can use this one here, this layout, and that would match that one, because these buttons aren't programmed to do anything, so we've got nothing. And I can use that direct button to turn that mode off, so that works okay. If I press my menu button either here or here, I end up in the menu. And again, there's no actual layout settings here. Let's enter map settings, and it's all done here with the options. So there's nothing to press on here, so that's not live at all, so that's okay. I'm just going to press the clear button to get out of that. There we go. Okay, and let's have a look at the flight plan. So when I'm using the flight plan, I really do need this flight plan layout here. So I'll pick that up from the pages and drop into flight plan there. So I manually selected the flight plan layout when I'm in flight plan mode. Possibly I could make this a little script so that it would take us into flight plan, but I haven't bothered to do that yet. So let's turn the flight plan off, and if you have a look at what's happening here with the Stream Deck, we're still not in the right mode, but we know I can pick that up by picking up the main option. So we've got the layout sorted out. Difficulty of making a script is that it's got to do it in two directions when we enter the flight plan and when we leave the flight plan mode. So it just becomes a bit clumsy. I don't propose to use it that often. There we go, that's how we can use that. So let's have a look at the procedure mode. So if I click on here on procedure, there's nothing here, so I don't really need any extra layout for that. That's okay. Let's turn the procedure off, and that's it really. So I think I've got something workable sorted. Let's bring the Stream Deck back in again. So I've got the main buttons clicked here to go in now. Again, I'm not sure how you're going to make those kind of changes, but if you did want to go into the engine mode and lean things, we can do that. And I'm going to test the lean assist option in flight later on and see what that does. It's more about having, if I go back, it's more about having the ability to change the pages to the ones that are going to be picked up by turning this knob here and going through the different modes, or pressing on the flight plan procedure buttons, the nearest, having those pages which don't come up automatically any other way. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that makes sense. I think it's best to see it in action, so I'm going to have a couple of test flights, and then we'll record one and let you see what the test flight brings up for us. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video.